Welcome to Section 420, Talkin Yankees, the podcast where Cashman goes all in, has a busy trade deadline where the Yankees vastly improve the team. Okay, they don't land any big superstar players, but definitely you see the Yankees are going all in for this season there. So if anyone wants to complain that, Hal and Cashman are, not being aggressive, not doing much here, can't really say that. They have pretty much revamped the entire bullpen, add some help on the infield they need there, as well as some speed off the bench. Again, not letting that big superstar player, but vastly improving this team compared to what they were looking at about 2 weeks ago. Again, when you didn't have a third baseman, you had a leaky bullpen, and again, kind of a lot of these questions around this team and kind of uncertainty in certain areas there. Well, a lot of that's been shored up there. I don't say this is, not the big move of getting Cecil Fielder or David Justice at the trade deadline like that, but definitely some moves that the Yankees need to make, specifically on the bullpen. Pretty much bringing in two closers from two other teams, and you combine that right now with kind of having two closers already with Weaver and Devin Williams. I know Williams a little spotty, gave up a home run the other night, but pitching well, and I know Weaver not as dominant as he was last year for the Yankees, but still, it's almost like now you basically have a bullpen of four closers more or less there. So big move there. Again, that was capped off with David Bednar from the Pittsburgh Pirates, but you could put him up there with Camilo Doval as maybe the two top moves of there. I mean, flip a coin, but and none of they're only good moves for this season, but both of them under control moving forward as well. So even if you lose Williams and or Weaver both during this offseason, you still have a strong back end of the bullpen there. So good moves all around. But Cashman's been a busy day. Kind of want to wait for it all to be over. So we'll give you the recap of all the moves in case you missed anything, what's coming in, what's going out. I'll judge the move if I thought it was good or not. Plus, let's look at the rest of baseball. The other teams looking to improve as well. Houston making a bit of a big splash, reuniting with Carlos Correa. As I mentioned on the most recent YouTube episode, Minnesota was going to be sellers. Well, they sold probably the biggest piece there. They're going to eat a chunk of the money as well. So we'll look around rest of baseball as well. And of course, we want to look at your competition as well as see what teams like Toronto is doing, who the Yankees are trying to chase there. And this all coming off the Yankees getting a much-needed series win, taking 3 games out of 4 against the Tampa Bay Rays. So a lot to get into this episode. But before we get started, as always, make sure you subscribe to this podcast, Section 420 Talkin Yankees, the podcast. Get my instant takes on things, so you don't have to wait a whole week for a new episode. And there's also the YouTube version of the show, Section 420 Talkin Yankees. Go on YouTube, search it, subscribe there as well. Again, just dropped an episode, kind of covered why I think the Yankees should have a good second half, and I kind of mentioned some teams that the Yankees will be facing, such as Minnesota, who are going to be sellers, and then by the time you face them in August, they should be at a low point where the Yankees should be racking up some easy wins against teams like that, as well as the Chicago White Sox. So Yankees have a lot of winnable games ahead of them and have a bit of a revamped team there. Only a little, bugaboo right now is you're worried about Judge coming back from the IL and, at what level, at what percentage of Judge is he going to be. So all that stuff there. But again, been rambling on here, so let me get started. Obviously, we know the moves they previously made, bringing Ryan McMahon as well as Rosario a little after that for mostly third base, and Rosario kind of a bit of a role player on the team. Obviously, he can play multiple positions, but I think probably the reason Cashman liked him, again, he eats up lefty pitching, and kind of seen Cashman doing that a little bit in the moves afterwards, and that's, of course, with Austin Slater. So the Yankees making a trade with the Chicago White Sox. Now, Slater, if you look at his numbers right now, doesn't really blow you off the charts there, only hitting .236, 5 home runs with 11 RBIs, but what you do like about him, he mashes up left-handed pitching. Now, the only reason that kind of bothered me a little bit is, does that say something about Aaron Judge when he comes back, at what level he's going to be? So, usually that Judge is your guy that, mashes up left-handed pitching, as you would expect. Mashes up lefties and righties, but the fact that you specifically bring this guy in there because he hits well against lefties, it just makes me a little bit concerned. And yes, he plays outfield. He plays all 3 outfield positions, so you like the versatility there. But I just hope that doesn't mean there's something that could be a little bit more wrong with Judge, or possibly it opens the door that maybe Judge could play through it, but maybe his effectiveness, and maybe they feel that maybe he could get hurt again within a couple of weeks with the type of injury he had. So that worries me a little bit, but nevertheless, good solid move from the Yankees. And you could say, they 2 left-handed, 2 right-handed. Now, Jason Dominguez was supposed to be a little bit of an equalizer, obviously him being a switch hitter, but if you look at his numbers as a lefty hitter versus as a righty hitter, his numbers when he hits left-hand is much better. In fact, some people say, he should almost give up being a right-handed hitter and just focus 100% of his efforts on just being an effective left-handed hitter versus both righties and lefties. But nevertheless, bringing in Slater. Now, he's just a rental. He's going to be a free agent after the season, and didn't have to give up too much for him, so they gave up Zeal, who was ranked as the number 18th prospect in the Yankee system. Maybe you could have gotten a little less for Slater there, but a decent deal. Again, he would play all outfield positions as well as first base. Now, Yankees don't really need that right now. Obviously, you covered well at first base. A little Ben Rice there, a little Paul Goldschmidt. I just hope that doesn't mean they think Judge might be a little hurt more than they're leading on there, but we'll leave it at that. And I guess maybe we'll just go in order here, latest to first in. Maybe we'll leave Bednar as kind of the closer of this kind of little segment here. So actually during the Yankees-Rays game, the final finale there, the two teams actually made a trade within the game against each other, which is kind of interesting. The Yankees landing Jose Caballero, who initially started with the Seattle Mariners back in 2023. And obviously he came up with a lot of fanfare, but did have some injuries early on, and then Tampa picked him up. But the reason why the Yankees probably had interest in him is his base stealing ability, his energy. Last season led the American League with 44 stolen bases, and so far in the 83 games he's played this season, has already swiped 33 bags. So this is a guy, a speedster off the bench, something the Yankees don't feature too often. I know, Dominguez is fast, Volpe sneaky, he could steal some base there, but maybe a guy that could come off the bench and just, steal a bag, or even, one of these, ghost runner games, something like that. If you get lucky enough to have him on second base, then maybe you can just swipe third, and now all you need to do is like a little bit, just like a little infield, little chopper there, and you can score and win the game. There's little things like that that he could bring you. And also you look at his defensive ability. Not he's known as a great defenseman, but he can play multiple positions, and even in a pinch, he can also play outfield. So you see the Yankees have this a little bit already with Ahmad Rosario, but this guy could also do that. Young as well, 28 years old. Now in terms of his defensiveness, he's an adequate shortstop, as I guess he's reported, and a little bit better than average second and or third baseman. And I always figured maybe the Rosario thing could have been a little shot across the bow for Volpe, who in that thrilling 4-5 win in the third game against Tampa had a thrilling ninth inning home run. But you're still worried about, has two more errors under his belt there, and it's just getting sloppy to the point where, you figure maybe Cashman want to fire a shot across the bow with him. Could Rosario be that move? I don't know. But this guy, Caballero, is definitely that guy who could maybe, replace Volpe if Volpe continues to struggle defensively in the field. He obviously doesn't have Volpe's power there, so that's kind of thing with Volpe. He kind of frustrates you with the defense a little bit, but again, he has the ability as a shortstop to hit home runs. And again, this guy's gonna end up probably with well over 20 home runs, which not too many shortstops can claim that. That's the annoying part of him. The other part is the defensive problems as well as the low batting average. He's always around 212, 213 there. So kind of Volpe's is kind of, the Jekyll and Hyde, the highs and lows of him. But this guy obviously has an opportunity to kind of, light a fire on the Volpe a little bit, that if he doesn't clean up his act, this guy could definitely play shortstop. Is he going to be as good as Volpe, more or less? But he won't butcher the ball as much. And what you also like about him, he's under control. He's not a free agent until 2030. So the Yankees have this guy under control for the next couple of seasons. So if they do make some moves around, I don't know, at some point if they lose Jazz, or at some point, I don't know, if they, and I don't think it's going to happen now, but let's say you were going to bring in another shortstop, it would have to come at the expense of including Volpe in a trade to be shipped out. Well, that time is past, trade deadline is past, it looks like Volpe's being shipped out. So as I kind of mentioned in the most recent YouTube episode, you're probably just going to have to grin and bear it, Volpe, and just hope it doesn't get too bad and just at some point just cleans up itself at some point there. But obviously he's going to have to address his defensive problems once we get into the winter. I guess Slater and Caballero, I guess you would say, are the position player moves. Everything else that has been pitching, which we knew the Yankees needed help with was the bullpen. Yes, can you always bring a big, starter in here? Yeah, but at what expense? You're not going to just get him as a rental. You also probably have to get him give him a contract extension and stuff like that. I just don't know if the Yankees were looking to go that way or release the type of players they would have to take to get the Yankees throughout this cycle here. Didn't have to lose Spencer Jones. Didn't have to lose Carlos Lagrange and his 102 mile per hour fastball. You didn't have to lose Jason Dominguez, and then even I know fans were up and down about him. You didn't have to lose someone like Volpe or an Austin Wells or Luis Heel, stuff like that. So Yankees were able to kind of keep their main guys, whether it's in the minors or guys up here on the major league level that are making relative peanuts and are under control for the next couple seasons there. So again, overall, you got to say for Cashman, I know they had to give up a lot of their prospects. Not really top mid level there in the 10s and 20s there, but still to bring all this type of talent in there for guys that are under control for the next couple seasons. That's why it's really good moves by Cashman. So after that, then we have Jake Bird, who, doesn't really, his numbers don't impress you right now. He's 4-1 with an ERA of 4.73 and pitching for the Colorado Rockies. But a little nugget in there, his home and split numbers vastly different there. He pitches much better at home, so it could be a road thing with him. I don't know what he had to do with that. But you can clearly see Cashman not only going after bullpen help, but he wants guys with swing and miss stuff. And the Yankees have been doing that for the past couple of seasons. Their whole philosophy is swing and miss stuff. Some pitchers like Sonny Gray got a little annoyed at that. They'd rather just go with the fastball and get guys out that way. The Yankees like their sliders in the dirt and sinkables in the dirt and all the garbage in the dirt. But if you don't have an adequate catcher, you have some problems. And that's kind of what happened with Gary Sanchez, that not able to block all those balls. Austin Wells a little bit better at that. And of course, Trevino, when he was here, also better at that than Gary Sanchez. But that's the Yankee philosophy. They like to swing and miss stuff, and this guy does that. So far right now in 53rd and 1/3 inning, this guy has 62 strikeouts, and he's averaging about more than a strikeout per inning. That's what the Yankees like, got the swing and miss stuff. And he's 29 years old, and he's not a free agent until 2029. So he's arbitration eligible next year, and then the 2 years after that, and then finally hits. So this is a guy you have under control for almost about another 3 years, and also juicy about him, he has 2 minor league options to him. So if Cashman wants to do a little maneuvering to send him down to AAA without having to put him on the waiver wire, he can do that there. So you would be concerned about the ERA a little bit, but again, also pitching in Colorado, even though his numbers at home are better than on the road there. All things to be considered, though. This is a good, solid arm. He's probably not maybe a back end a type of option, a high leverage type of option, but if you could bring a guy like that who is swing and miss stuff in the 6th inning just to get a big out, that's the type of guy you could do. And this Yankee bullpen, not exactly what we thought it would be. We're seeing some holes already. Again, Loiza's have some issues. Not exactly what we thought he would be. Obviously, he had a late start to the season coming off the UCL surgery. Mark Leiter Jr., obviously, he's hurt for a little bit. He's due to come back, but, he wasn't exactly wowing you. Fernando Cruz also due to come back, who was doing great for the Yankees this season, but again, a couple injuries to well. And just the current guys, like Luke Weaver, for example, had the groin issue, came back, and really overall this season just hasn't looked like himself. Again, at times he's been okay and been dominant, but still not the guy we had last postseason when you were kind of getting glimpses of like 1996 version of Mariano Rivera. And even though Devin Williams got off to a really bad start, he has cleaned up his act there, and he's pretty much seemed like he's taken that 9th inning role. I know he had the blip the other night against Tampa, but overall, I got to say with Williams, definitely cleaned up the act, definitely looking more like himself, getting a lot of swing and misses on his airbender there. But the problem with those two, they're free agents, both of them after the end of the season, so possibly the Yankees could lose both. So if you do that, again, the Yankees, some of the moves they pulled off, we're able to shore that up where, if they lose 1 or 2 of those guys, they still have some quality arms at the back end of the bullpen. But right now, you was worried about 2025, and just the fact that you have guys like Bird, and you're going to have Weaver in there, you're going to have Devin Williams in there, and of course the next 2 guys you're going to introduce as well, have them in there, basically their closers for their own teams right now, come to the Yankees. So you're basically going to have like 4 closers in this bullpen there, will make it very dominant as long as everyone does their job. And I guess they'll swing that around to Camilo Doval. Yankees training for him from the San Francisco Giants. Now, didn't have the greatest of seasons last year for him, but he's bounced back so far this season. 4-2 record with an ERA of 3.09. But this is also a guy with swing and miss stuff. In 44 games, he's got 50 strikeouts in 46.2 innings there. So again, another guy that averaging about a strikeout per inning. Got the swing and miss stuff. Now, in order to land this guy, for the Yankees had to give up a little bit more of a boatload. So you got Jesus Rodriguez, Parks Harbor, Tristan Relling, and Carlos De La Rosa. He's quite young. He's 28 years old, but he's not a free agent until 2028. So this is a guy goes to arbitration 26 and 27. So you have this guy under control for this season and the next 2 seasons there. And again, he's still kind of his prime at age 28. So, good quality deal for Cashman. They did have to give a haul to get this guy there, but it's another swing and miss guy you bring in. And we'll see where the chips land. These guys are going to be here for a few weeks, and maybe, I don't know, just the way it works out, the matchups, maybe, Doval becomes the Yankees closer, sometime by September. I mean, who knows? They could, all 4 of these guys can close games, so that's the good move. And it's going to go back to our friend Jake Bird a little bit, kind of missed that, and again, a lot going on here. For the Yankees to land that Bird, for example, Yankees trading away second baseman Rock Riggio. Now he's ranked as the number 10th Yankee in their prospect in their system, and left-handed pitcher Ben Shields ranked number 28th. And another thing by Bird, I forgot to mention as well, this is a guy that likes a beard. Now, obviously, the Yankees updated their rules this season with the beards, but it has to be a neatly trimmed beard. This guy got the big Santa Claus beard usually, so he's going to have to trim that down a little bit, or maybe we'll have to see what Bird does with that. He's probably not going to be able to have the hair free-flowing as he probably did in his Colorado days, but thanks to Devin Williams, he will have some form of the beard. We'll just have to see all how that works out there. So just that's the news on Bird there. And then last but not least, David Bednar, the Pittsburgh Pirates closer. Didn't have a good start this season. Obviously got cuffed up a little bit early. They sent him down to the minors. Looks like he revamped his curveball, as they say. Then since then he's been golden. And so the Yankees kind of getting him when he's on the upswing. He's a 2-time All-Star. And since coming up, he's converted all 17 of his saves, pitching to a 1.74 .70 ERA in 39 games, and he also has a streak of 33 consecutive scoreless innings, and that goes from May 24th to most recently July 26th. So again, you got a hot pitcher pitching well right now. Again, and he has closing experience. Now, in order to get him, Yankees had to part way with Eldridge Perez, who's ranked as the number 14th prospect in the Yankee system, outfielder Brian Sanchez, and I guess probably the biggest prospect the Yankees let go during this whole sort of past week or so, if you want to go back to the Brian McMahon trade, their number 8 catching prospect, Rafael Flores. Again, you never know how these guys will turn out there, and catches are kind of hard to come by, good quality catches, but again, you get a good quality arm like this, you have to give something to get something, and again, not only is you have him for this season, but he's also under control for next season, and again, in case someone like Devin Williams or Luke Weaver ends up bolting to free agency somewhere else, you have a guy that could pitch high leverage innings for next season as well, so it gives you a little bit of a security blanket. So those are the moves. Oh, and I forgot this one quick thing with Jose Caballero. Actually, to get him, the Yankees had to part way with Everson Pereira. So remember Pereira, the Yankees bought him a couple seasons ago. Decent there. Last season was hurt, had surgery. But I don't think there was a superstar there. I mean, yeah, he could have been a decent player, but we'll never know really. And I just don't know if there would have been room for him to play here. He's an outfielder. Yankees are kind of stacked at outfield. Obviously you have someone like Trent Grisham, who's probably after the season won't be here, but maybe someone like Bellinger would. Dominguez is going to be there in the outfield, and Judge, obviously, we'll see what form he comes back in, but at least maybe not the rest of the season, but at least starting next year, you'll be your right fielder there. And probably you may plan to bring up Spencer Jones to play center field. So I just think the Yankees, for the near future, pretty much stacked in the outfield, so I don't think Pereira would ever gotten an opportunity. So yes, he's being shipped out, looks like, to Tampa, and maybe he'll come back in a Tampa uniform and kill the Yankees, who knows, but obviously the Yankees parting way Pereira. So those are the moves. I think I got them all in there. So if you want to grade Cashman, I think an A would have been if you landed like a superstar player there. So I'm going to be a little stingy, but I'll give him a B+ on all this stuff. I would like to give him the A, but he improved some areas of the team. He definitely improved the bullpen, hands down there. The rotation, I just don't know who was out there reasonably, and that's not really a dire area for the Yankees. They do got Louis Heel coming back. They gave him one final fourth rehab start. Didn't get a chance to touch upon that, but it looks like he will finally get the ball Sunday against the Miami Marlins, so finally we'll see him up here. And for the Yankees, things are rolling a little bit. You just took 3 out of 4 against the Tampa Bay Rays. He had that gritty 5-4 win. Again, they kind of back and forth win there. Those are the games that the Yankees always lose. If they blow a lead in the 9th, they kind of just sulk and just lose in extra innings like that. They didn't do that. We got a major home run from Volpe, so as much as you want to kill the guy, again, as a shortstop, one flick of the wrist, you can still get the ball out there, so that's kind of why, again, he seems appealing to you. And also got a great play in left field by unlikely source in Jason Dominguez to only allow 1 run at that point there. Again, he had a bit of a bases loaded situation. Could have been ugly if he dropped that ball. It would have been probably 3 runs in and game over. So again, they stopped the bleeding at that point then. And you'll probably put that probably as probably the best win of the season. I know the Yankees had the 5-0 comeback win against Seattle. You could also look at the Trent Grisham Grand Slam game in Atlanta. They were down there. But this type of game, even though they're only down by a run there, I mean, those are always the games they lose this season. It's just to see them win a game, especially like a pesky team like Tampa there that, always has big on the fundamentals and all that stuff. Very satisfying win. So you got the upswing of that. You took 3 or 4 against them. And again, you have a relatively overall, the next 2 months, a lighter schedule. You can start out for the Miami Marlins. These are wins you should almost pencil in there. And the Yankees have crawled back a little bit. See, this is what happens when you win games. It's actually shocking. The Yankees gone from 5.5 down, second place in the AL East, to now 3.5. So they're within striking distance there. So you just keep chopping away at that. So I still think this is the Yankees division to win. I've been saying that all along there. And if you want to look at Toronto, making a trade with the Baltimore Orioles just to get a righty reliever. So they didn't really make any big splashes. Maybe they just feel comfortable where they are, but if they were ahead of the Yankees a little bit, they could use some reinforcements. Looks like they didn't do that, didn't go big on anybody. And if you want to look at some other teams in the baseball, obviously Houston, who's leading their division, they're at least going to try to go all for it, trading to get Carlos Correa back from the Minnesota Twins. I mentioned Minnesota's going to eat a chunk of that contract, and then in the Suarez sweepstakes, ended up in Seattle, who, when we discussed him during one of the YouTube episodes going about him, I mentioned both the Yankees and the Mariners were kind of rumored to be big on him. Looks like they landed the big bird on that one, so I guess they'll make a push. I don't know if it's enough for them to get the AL West, but maybe gives them an opportunity to make some noise in the wild card there to be one of those teams there. So it looks like they're going all for it as well. Mets making some minor moves. This getting Cedric Mullins. Remember, he's been around for a little bit and bringing a couple of arms. So they're showing up a little bit. Didn't make the major splash, the big name splash, but a little tinkering there as well. But the Yankees very busy, very busy. You're going back to third base. bullpen. And those were the two main areas that were realistic. A starting pitcher, I don't think the Yankees were going to die. They need to bring a big-name starting pitcher in here. Yeah, you could always use it. Why not? You could use another arm there, but I don't think it was a dire need, so I didn't expect them to bring anyone in. So, Cashman did everything he can. I think this is good. Again, to compare what you gave up, what you're getting here, you're getting mostly guys under control for the next couple of seasons, and a lot of insurance policies in case Weaver and/or Devin Williams end up walking at the end of the season. You got better defensively and more production at third base. You now have Caballero, maybe a little threat to Volpe at shortstop, that if he doesn't clean up those fielding errors, you got a guy you can put in there, and we know what he can do. He can steal bases, and put a guy like that. Maybe he's not the greatest hitter in the world, but you get him on top of that lineup, get him on the bases running around a little bit. You could generate some offense that way as well and be a bit of a pest. So overall, things looking much better for the Yankees than they were about 2 weeks ago when it's just, you're down in the dumps, you lose a bunch of games to Toronto, and Judge is hurt, and you're 5.5 games down in second place in the AL East there. But Cashman to the rescue there. So he always says, does this team deserve a shot for the postseason? Overall, I think they do. I mean, you're just getting some bad luck lately in some areas, some injuries, and can't expect Max Fried to throw 8 innings of 1-run ball there all the time there. But hopefully he can bounce back a little bit. He's been scuffling a tad there, as well as Rendon there, but things more or less intact with the Yankees, and now making all these additions. Very excitable for this team moving forward. And now, again, only 3.5 back in the AL East, which is very achievable. You can make that up in a week, and you still have a couple series head-to-head with Toronto left to look forward to. So that's the episode. Solid trade deadline by Cashman. Overall, no big name players, really superstars, but that's okay. You can still make some big moves in other areas. And again, Yankees did some great stuff there. So like all of it, and so we'll see what this team responds, and they move forward to Miami. We'll catch you next time.